everybody? Welcome to Magic Dad's podcast. I'm Rugley, joined by 100 Card Hero and Pinty Het. What's up, dudes?
Hi.
It's 2024 now.
We made it.
We made it.
It's the name of the year. Have you heard the name of the year this year?
It's the year of the dragon.
No, it's 20 Fun Galore. That's the name of the year this year. 20 Fun Galore, 2024.
It's an election year. It's not going to be fun.
No, you're correct.
Man.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that earlier.
Things dads think about. It's an election year.
To be clear, fun galore, not two words, one word, fun galore. He hears your wishes. That's the actual tagline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fungalore is a dude?
He's a guy.
I thought we were talking about the lore of fungus.
He might be a wizard.
The Myco Tyrant is hanging out over here.
That card is sweet.
Yeah,
it is really sweet. Yeah.
Lost Caverns ended up being way better than it had any business being.
There's some power.
Small
There's some power in
tangent
that
there.
set.
Yeah, the Merfolk gets are hot and spicy. Really like those.
So, leading up to the release of LCI, I don't know if... Okay, so backtrack. In 2022, it was really easy for me to identify my favorite card. Like, super easy for me to identify my favorite card. I was having a really hard time at the end of 2023 figuring out what my favorite card from 2023 was. And, I mean, like, the One Ring is obviously up there. I really like Atraxa Grand Unifier, but nothing was just like, yes, this is my favorite card. And then I cast an Inti. That card's
good.
Nuts.
It's very good.
And it has Lelia vibes, so who would have thought a tiny red creature that draws cards would have been my favorite?
Just holding hands, riding that dinosaur. Those two.
Yeah.
Speaking
what was your
of
favorite card from 2023, now that it's over.
Oh, me or Jay?
Both of you.
Okay.
Anybody that wants to answer the question. Chat, what's your favorite card from 2023?
Good question.
Comment down below what your favorite card from 2023 was.
Mine was definitely Bowmaster. Orcish Bowmaster's cards nuts. I doubted it, and then I ended up buying a copy because everybody was like, it's great. And I was like, I don't see it. And then I bought it, and I cast it, and the card is insane. The card's really, actually, really good. Really very good.
It is very, very powerful.
I really like Samwise the Stout-Hearted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, also very good.
Yeah. Having so many cool interactions with just a Caracas. Like, make your guy other guy ring bearer. It's legendary now. You bounce it, or bounce the Sam, or whatever. Just so much fun, dirtily stuff you can do with the card. Yeah, and that is my MO.
Truly a cockroach. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a dirtle.
Sick. So. All right, so now into the meat and potatoes. Potatoes, boil them, smash them, stick them in a stew. Of today's podcast. You can see it up there. 10 reasons why you should play Canlander. Come play Canlander with us in 2024. Do it. I don't know if there's actually 10 reasons on this list. I don't think there is.
We're not great at this.
Again,
there's some
three of them are here.
You know what?
As long as there's 7, we're the other 3.
You know what? Audience, if you can think of another reason, go ahead and put it in the comments. Your reasons are the reasons. Fill in the blanks for us. So,
number one on this list is it's okay to be competitive. Jeremiah, tell me what that means.
So this is a reach out to the Commander players out there for sure. But in Commander specifically, you're not blowing up your opponent's lands. You're doing, mostly fair things. It's not the case in Canadian Highlander. Just go for the throat. Law of the Jungle, kill or be killed. If you've ever wanted to strip all of your opponent's lands and just sit there and stare at them, you're welcome to do so.
Man, I love doing that. Strip Mine is such a cool card.
If you want to play more Magic, like a lot of people like to play Commander because like you're going to play a longer game. Canadian Highlander, you just play an extra game. Just shuffle up, play another game.
Yeah, for sure. So there's, speaking of Commander specifically, there's this like fence, right? There's this fence and there's this competitive side and then there's this casual side and everybody has an opinion and nobody's fence is at the same spot and it's really weird gray area that like you don't have to worry about that in Canlander.
Everybody's deck is a 7 in Commander.
Yeah, for sure. Depending on where their fence is.
Yeah.
In relation to In
Canlander, it's a 10.
It's a deck. You come to win.
10.
That's well, I mean, some people only play 9 points.
Fair enough.
Red Ryan, famous for playing 7 points for a long time.
Why add the extra 3? Red Ryan.
No, it was 8,
I love that
we're
calling that. Yeah. He just didn't need
yeah,
ones.
it's okay to be competitive in Canadian Highlander. Reason number 2, Canadian Highlander's free to play. If you play locally, we allow proxies. All of them, 100 cards, no problem. You don't even need magic cards to play in one of our tournaments.
It helps.
You could just show up and play.
Yeah. And this is, so we're located in central Iowa, if you weren't keenly aware of that. We play largely in the surrounding area, and all of our tournaments up till this point and continuing now have been 100% for proxy. Like, bring whatever you have. If you need to proxy a full deck, we know people that have full proxy decks, like have a catalog of proxy decks so they can test and play, and it's totally fine. Like, not only do we are we cool with it, we advertise that we're cool with it.
Yes, please. Cost should never be a bar to entry. We just want you to come play Magic with us.
Yeah,
and we want you to play the deck you want to play.
Yeah.
And if you want to find what the best deck is, you allow proxies, because that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a really good point too. Some metrics might be skewed because those formats or groups don't allow proxies, or they don't allow all the proxies. You only get 10 or 9 or whatever it is. So that certainly skews the metagame.
Yeah, even at a 10 proxy format, your deck probably costs less than $100. If you're being conscious of money. But 100% proxies here. All you need is a printer or a Sharpie, and you can play Canadian Highlander with us.
Yeah. We do ask that you write the full rules text from a card onto the card so that it is easy for you and your opponent to identify.
If you can't write in a legible manner, maybe get a printer, use a printer.
Or have somebody else write for you.
Yeah.
You get a ghostwriter for your Magic proxies.
Yeah. You'll see guys in our community bust out like their craft moms. They get out the little paper cutters and start cutting out the proxies together, and it's almost like a little knitting circle, but they're making Magic proxies.
It's a sweatshop for Canlander decks.
Yeah.
It's sort of funny that we play at a store that sells Magic cards, sponsored by people that sell Magic cards, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Play the cards you have, proxy the cards you don't, and eventually, you get a taste and you'll want to have the card.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again where someone will win some quantity of dollars from playing in one of our tournaments and then just go spend it on Magic cards because they want they're connected to this deck now. They want to own this deck or whatever. And they just
take that proxy Tropical Island, fling it in the trash can, stick the real one right in the sleeve.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
Eventually I want to own every card. And so I'll just buy one at a time, build a collection. You don't have to do that.
Or don't buy a Sharpie.
Reason number 3, a playset is 1 card.
Yeah.
Was that the third reason? I don't know. I lost track already.
It does allow you to have a really cool, functionally large collection of playable decks.
Yeah, you can really, if you are someone who wants to invest, like me, you only need 1 copy of each card, so you don't have to worry about getting your playset, especially for some of these reserve list cards that are really, really hard to find. Sourcing a playset of those is very, very difficult, but if you only have to seek out 1 copy, and you only have to budget for 1 copy, it makes building decks so much easier.
Shout out to Tommy for getting his playset of Bazaars finally.
Yeah.
Was it his plan to just immediately sell them after Eternal Weekend, though?
Yeah.
I don't know if he did or not, but...
He sort of loves them, so I don't know.
For sure.
Travis, one of the most prolific players on our tournament circuit, actually swaps 10 cards out of his Canlander deck to make his Commander deck.
Yeah, he's always playing that.
He doesn't even need 2 of those cards to also have a Commander deck. He just does a swap, and it's just
one deck.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of having just a base collection of cards that is effectively a cube, and you could curate it into a cube if you wanted to. But yeah, that's your whole collection, and just 1 of each, and you're fine. You don't I do have more than 1 copy of cards because I do play other other formats, but like it's not not even close to as extensive as my Canadian Highlander collection.
Yeah, for sure. Next reason on the list is that there's a lot of opportunities to play Canlander here locally.
Yeah.
A lot. So we are running the Maple Cup, which signups have already ended, unfortunately, at the time that this is going out. But Maple Cup. So it's a league that lasts for a full month. Cash prize at the end of it. You've got the quarterly tournaments for the Lawnlander Championships. Those are, spring, summer, winter, fall. There's 4 of them out of the year. And then you got Canadian Highlander every Friday at GK. We have Canadian Highlander F&M. We get 8, 10, 12. So we've had more people than that every single week to play Canadian Highlander. And now, starting back up this month in January, Canadian Highlander every Sunday at GK. It's our Maple Cup day, but I mean, show up and play Canadian Highlander on the stream, man.
Yeah,
or at the very least, watch the stream.
Yeah, there's lots of options to, even if you're not jamming, there's opportunities to consume content. I feel like for the longest time, I was frustrated at the quantity, or like at least like the quality of Canadian Highlander content that was being made. Like obviously there's stuff from Loading Ready Run, which I do appreciate and I enjoy, but that is sort of taken sort of a downswing.
Well, it's only like once
the live
a week,
stuff.
right? One video a week.
It's every 2 weeks.
Oh,
one every 2 weeks.
Yeah, 24
and
here is not that many.
No.
We've put out with something like 75 individual pieces of Canadian Highlander content in 2023, and there is going to be way more in 2024.
Yeah.
We are focusing on Canlander in 2024.
Yeah, shout out to the guys at 10 Points podcast. They are really pushing themselves to create some good content this year too. But yeah, like having this local group where like you can get in a game and creates content. So if you're not playing and you just kind of want to watch it and absorb some of that, because a lot of what I enjoy about the format is just watching it, it's available to you here. Like we're actively working on producing it. Like hang in there.
Also local to Central Iowa, First Turn Games, running a tournament every other month now.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely forgot about that as well. Yeah. So
and I believe they also have
6 more tournaments that you can play in right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also I think have F&M now for Canlander.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. There's so much opportunity to play Canadian Highlander. So I think those are the end of the sort of like more
gameplay,
locally focused.
Yeah.
The remainder of the things on this list are specific to Canadian Highlander and deck building and gameplay. So the first one is that you can play any card from the history of Magic in Canadian Highlander.
That's like the whole thing. Like that's so good. If you have a card that you love, you have no opportunity to play in any other format, or is banned in every other format that you've played it in, like get it in the deck. It's play it.
So there's all these cards that are playable in Canadian Highlander that aren't playable in other formats, like cards from standards past or moderns past that just they had their time, and new and more powerful things have been printed, or cards have been banned, and you can't play those cards in those formats anymore, or those cards aren't competitive in those formats anymore. And people love their tent poles, man. Like Bloodbraid Elf, for example, banned in Modern for a long time, unbanned. It's still, I mean, very playable, I think. When the Beans deck, before the Beans got banned, like that was a really, really good moment for Bloodbraid Elf. But Bloodbraid Elf is one that I always just, the card is insane, and it just can't keep up with some of the more efficient stuff that's been printed. And when it comes to Cascade, like the 3-drops are the premium one, right? So the terrible Demonic Dread or whatever the other one's called, they get played. Bloodbraid Elf is just over here like, hey, I can attack for 3 also.
Hey, we like attacking for 3.
So tentpole uncommons from draft sets too. Like the one that I always refer to as Crackling Drake, which Crackling Drake is getting some spotlight now in Pioneer. But that card has been one of my favorite cards since that draft set, since that limited format. And there was just nowhere to play it. And it's so good in Canadian Highlander. Attack you? Okay. No blocks? Cool. Cast Tainted Pact?
I kill you now. I think also just like those tentpole, those uncommon role players that really pushed decks from like a 9 to a 10, like Winding Constrictor. You want as many of those, like if you're playing a counters deck, you really want those counters doubling effects, and you're gonna dig as deep as you need. And like when I say dig as deep as you need, you only have a single copy of anything. So like a Winding Constrictor that maybe doesn't get any play in any other format is suddenly like the holy grail of what you want to see in your deck.
Yeah, because you need that redundancy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is if there's a card you love, you can build a deck around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Canadian
100%.
Highlander.
Or, like, if there's like a standard deck that you played a long time ago that you're really really passionate about, that I wish I could play standard in 1996 forever. You can build a deck in Canadian Highlander that gives you that same vibe that plays a lot of those cards.
1996. What is that? Mirage?
I don't know. It's just
we playing Gaia's Blessing?
Oops, that was what came out.
I mean, at least two of us have played Cruel Ultimatum in Canlander.
So,
that is
yes.
fact. Not me.
Stefan has talked about this a little bit, but the design philosophy for standard releases has changed a little bit in the last couple of years. And Morrow, and I don't know who else on the R&D team has talked about this, but they're trying to build standard archetypes into the draft sets.
Yeah.
So that when you draft, you can sort of like build your standard collection up, and then the standard deck is kind of like based on the draft archetype is like, and I feel like that has impacted Canadian Highlander a lot. Jeremiah's Jund Cauldron deck is a shining example of this. That Jeremiah's deck got so much from Eldraine and from Lost Caverns of Ixalan that there's tons of overlap in there. It's all these new cards that, like, Canadian Highlander, people play like old cards, like you see a lot of legacy staples and vintage staples and stuff like this, and Jeremiah's over here taking down tournaments with LCI draft chaff.
Yeah, Gruff triplets.
Oh my gosh!
Drop elbows.
I don't want to talk about it.
You know?
I don't want to talk about it.
But that's one of the cool things about it. You can
It's
meld the
very
new cards
cool,
with the
yeah.
old cards, right?
Yeah.
Like, Gruff triplets, yeah, whatever. But you pair it with Recurring Nightmare, it's nuts.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I think you don't need. I do appreciate the way that standard is being built out right now, because it does add these not necessarily hyper powerful cards, but like utility based and like synergy driven, where you see the synergies that are built into these draft archetypes, and you can see synergies with those draft archetypes with previously printed cards, and suddenly gears start turning, and you see opportunities like Jay said, where like suddenly Recurring Nightmare, which was already kind of like a really good card anyway,
Kind of, yeah.
yeah, banned in Commander, and I think for a long time it was considered very slow in Canadian Highlander, but I think it's totally okay to grind out just some absolute wins. Like it is somewhat slow. It does require some amount of setup, but why not? Why not set up?
Yeah, it's something that it's sort of a talent that Jeremiah has, is seeing this card and thinking like, wow, that's really good with Recurring Nightmare, because I'm like he's a real Magic boomer, and I'm like more of like a Magic millennial, where I see Gruff triplets and I'm like, hey, Burford Pod. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's that disparage in age gap there, where his knowledge of synergies from decades past is really an advantage in deck building, which segues nicely into the next topic: creative deck building. Canadian Highlander showcases creative deck building probably better than any other format.
Yeah, this is a place where if you have an idea for a deck, or you want to replicate a deck or a strategy from any other format, you sort of can. And by that I mean, like, you sort of have to stitch together three or four different bodies of decks together that have like overlapping synergies and gameplay into a functional deck. And it may take a little bit of thought and a little bit of card selection, and sometimes you just fill in the gaps with good cards. I think that sort of goes without saying. But you're gonna kind of come away with something that resembles that.
Yeah, you really have to dig deep. And if you are a person who likes to build decks as much or more than actually play the game, Canadian Highlanders are really, really, really good space to brew. The format is by no means, no matter what somebody says to you, solved.
Yeah, it's one of those things where restrictions really do breed creativity.
Yeah.
You know, and the format is in a perfect spot for that. It's just restrictive enough to breed some creativity, but wide open enough that you could do almost anything.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a lot of time to play Magic necessarily, but you love to think about Magic, it's also great.
Yeah, I love
you
that.
know, because you can obsess about Canadian Highlander to no end.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and with no apologies. Going back to the first point or the first reason you should be playing, no apologies. Whatever nasty thing you can think to do to your opponent, you can do it.
Hell yeah. The last thing, certainly not the least thing on the list, is variety in gameplay. So, Stefan, this is a real big one for you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in other formats, we've sort of talked about it. Blake and I and Jeremiah have all sort of done commentary in different ways. And we've talked about these decks where people have to base their game plan based on the texture of their opening hand. If you have a functional opener, you're going to set your game plan based on the context of that opener, and then the gameplay is going to evolve from there. And there are some decks that play like that and some that don't. They really need a consistency.
Yep.
But in Canadian Highlander, every deck is sort of like that. Even if you have like a single game plan, like a Storm deck, you have to examine the opening texture of your hand, look at it, see if you have a functional hand, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to and be ready to pivot at any given point of what's going to happen. And you're never going to, and I would almost put money on this, that you are never going to experience the same gameplay in one game as the next. You're never going to have game deja vu.
Yeah, no, there's decks, where one game I feel like I'm playing an aggro deck, and then the next game I just play this like super grindy, really long, great game, and then the next game just raffle stomp my opponent, with the random combo that's built into my deck for some apparent. It's like that 100 card singleton nature with the restriction of the points list really, it does, like Jeremiah said, restriction breeds creativity, but it also breeds this insane amount of variance.
Yeah, and to the advantage of a new player, it means that the best player doesn't always win.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the great things about Magic. You've always got the puncher's chance, and in a singleton format, that's even more prevalent. So
yeah, drawing the nut sometimes just doesn't matter how skilled you are. Sometimes you just draw the nut and you take the game. I mean, that's why we like best 2 out of 3, right? Or because
or 3 out of 5, or
best 3 out of 5. Like some amount of like that. You have to claw your way over the nut draws, but like building those nut draws into your deck is sort of part of that process. Like going back to creative deck building, it's okay to play to the consideration that some of those games you're just going to win because you draw your pointed, powerful cards. Yeah.
But it's even a bigger point is that if you look at the online community, a lot of times people will talk about, well, you can't defend against this or that. The thing is that your opponent doesn't always have the nut draw. They don't always have it. It's a singleton format, and the worst possible scenario is not always going to happen to you. Yeah, right. Like, and so you get a lot of games that are very scrappy, just trying to eke out a win however you can, and you're not just the time vault's not on the table turn 1 and untapping on turn 2. It just doesn't happen that often, So don't let people like that turn you off to the format, because it's just not true about how it actually plays. And those people don't play the format.
No.
They just talk on the internet.
It's okay to swing for lethal with your Llanowar elves.
Yeah, occasionally you'll get turn 1 blood moon, and it sucks. But like, it's a very low percentage of games.
That's also sort of rad. If your opponent had like
happened to me ones of times in 7 years or whatever.
And then your opponent's just having the greatest time of their life.
And you know that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, celebrate your opponent, get hyped.
Sean's just having the greatest time flashing.
Dude, the wink into the camera was, oh man.
We were doing commentary for the year end, and Sean...
I didn't see it on the first pass by until you pointed it out. It's so mint.
He messaged me afterwards, and he's like, dude, I winked at you. I knew you'd lose your mind when you saw it. sort of a little bit of backstory there is I had been trying to talk Sean into playing Black Lotus in his deck for probably over a year since before we started the tournament series, and he finally lamented. And of course, in the semifinals, he draws it in Blood Moon turn 1. I'm like,
yeah, he looks at his opening hand and kind of ponders it for a minute, looks at his opponent, looks at the camera, and winks. It was so beautiful. This I love this community. I love these people, that have really committed to this, and there's so many reasons why. If you're playing Magic locally, you should come check out some Canadian Highlander. The format's great, the community's great, lots of opportunities to play. Come play Canadian Highlander with us in 2024.
If you're not local,
grow. Even
if you like the content,
if
you like the content, watch the content. If you like to talk about Magic, join the Discord. There's a million ways to interact with us, and there's no reason not to. I don't know. How many times can you show up with a bunch of scraps of paper and a Sharpie and leave with a dual land?
That's a lot of dual lands you could win.
If you need tax paperwork because you've been playing so much Magic, you're doing it right.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Magic Dads podcast. As always, if you made it all the way to the end, you're just the best.
Love you, honestly.
I think you're all right.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. And we just want to remind you that
we're proud
of you.